people don't have much on their roofs. They're just put some boards up there, that'll take care of it. Because a tenth of an inch of rain, I like to say I can spit that much. It just isn't much rain at all. So it's very dry. It's a mining city. The only reason it's there is because there's copper and some lithium that they mine exclusively. But it is a fairly good-sized city of 400,000 people. If you were to look at Antofagasta, if we were to enlarge that section here, here's the town or the city of Antofagasta. You can see it's kind of shaped like Chile. It's kind of long and narrow because of what? It's sandwiched between the mountains and the ocean. And the Perrys live actually down here way at the southern end. The church is near the middle of the city. And the airport, of course, is on the other side of the city. So you have to go through the whole schmear to get there. So that's where we went. Let's talk a little bit about who went. There's a picture of us getting ready to go. And we'll introduce each one of these people individually. This is my granddaughter, Elizabeth Peeler. Some of you may not know, she's had 2 years of high school Spanish. She's the one we've been praying for with the ACL injury to her knee. She's doing quite well on that. Not back to 100% yet. She's in 10th grade, and for her, this was her first time flying, so she was excited about that. I asked each of us to kind of give us a quick summary statement of what we thought of what we did, and she gave me a nice long summary, but if you look at it, there's some good thoughts behind it. She said, "It was a great cultural shock for me, as I have always grown up learning about God. Most of these people who have recently turned to God in faith were starting the first generation of Christians in their families." So they come to know Christ, and it's not like, yeah, my grandparents father was a pastor or something like that. She said, seeing the amount of faith and dedication these people had to Christ was a real encouragement to me. So I think the Lord had some good observations for her being there. Then there was grandson Seth. He's had 4 years of Spanish. He's a little further down the way. He's also visited Spain on a Northside trip last summer, and he's in 11th grade at Northside. He's also 6 feet 5 inches, which is kind of hard to pack in, in an airplane or in a car or wherever you want to put him. But so I asked him, and he likes Spanish. I asked him, what would you say about the trip? And so that's what he said. And I said, can you tell me that in English? And I said, yeah. He said, okay. First he pointed me to Google Translate, and I said, just tell me in English what your words are. So what he said, it was a beautiful time for the glory of God. I trust that God would use it in determining his will for my life. Pray for Chile. And I think as he interacted, and we'll see some of that in some of the further on slides, as he interacted with some of the people, saw the culture and what it's like, I sense the Lord's kind of calling him into some sort of perhaps ministry, perhaps in Chile. He's talked about maybe at the end of, after he graduates, before going to college, maybe spending a year on a mission field somewhere, maybe like Chile, and just get a feel for it before you kind of commit to all kinds of education. So pray for him, but we had a good time packing him into different places. And then, of course, there's Lois. She served in Chile and Argentina for almost 40 years. She speaks Spanish. She's our best one, and she is a very nice person to travel with. I'm biased, but I'm not alone on that. She said it was nice to visit the church in Antofagasta and with friends from past ministries, and we'll show you some of the extra opportunities that we had for her. And then there's myself, and I speak no Spanish. Hola is it, and sometimes adios. But I picked up a few words. But I've already visited the church before, which was nice to reconnect with some of the people that I've met in the past. I was kind of the coordinator, the financier, and I was the old guy on the team. So what I would say, I'm very thankful for God's direction during this trip and for the opportunities to see the ministries of both Mark and Becca and Lois, and I'll share a little bit more about that later on. So that's the four of us that went, and we were going primarily to see the ministry of Mark and Becca Perry, and I was impressed with their improved grasp of Spanish. When I was there 5 years ago, they they worked and they struggled to do it, but at this point in time, they just seemed very relaxed, very comfortable, both of them, just talking to people and carrying on conversations, which I guess comes with years of experience. I appreciated their care for the people, the individuals. They spend a lot of time one-on-one and family on family, discipling them and teaching them and building relationships. And they really cared for the people. And the people really responded to that. They really seemed to love them and appreciate them. They seem to have adjusted well to the city culture. And as some of you may know, they've recently moved from a 16th floor condo to a mission house that has 3 floors on it. That's that the Flinks used to be in, but since they moved, now they've moved into this new house, and you'll see some things of what's going on there. So that's who was involved. Let's talk a little bit about why did we go? And I asked especially the 2 grandkids, I want you to write out some goals. What do you hope to accomplish by going? And they did that, and Lois and I also did some of that. And some of our goals were to visit family. Yeah, we love to see them, but to observe missionary life and a missionary church in action. You get used to your own church and what goes on, but to see a young church and to see it in action, and maybe with a little different rhythm in terms of scheduling of services and stuff, we wanted to see that. We wanted to experience that. We wanted to be encouragement to the believers, to talk to them, to tell them about our love for the Lord Jesus Christ. We wanted to develop and use language skills, and I think all of us did some development in that regard. And we encouraged them to make at least a friend or a couple friends for follow-up that they can connect with and interface back and forth. And I believe both Seth and Elizabeth did, and I certainly have a couple that I'm connected with as well too. And we wanted to expose them to a different culture, something that's a bit different. How does the gospel look in a different culture? How do you just live in what you're not used to? And there were a lot of things that were different. And finally, part of the job of when you're on a mission journey there, or visiting missionaries, is just to bring things for Mark and Becca. We had Thanksgiving down there, and we brought things that they couldn't get down there that they needed. They did find turkeys, but we did bring some things for us. So those are some of our goals. And then how did we go? Well, we flew. If you try to use your GPS and figure out how to drive there, it says, I can't figure it out. So it's a long way to go. So we started from Columbus. We flew down to Atlanta. We made a good connection there to catch, with 2 hours in between flights, to catch our flight down to Santiago. That was our longest flight. And then we flew back 2 hours to get to Antofagasta. You just can't fly almost anywhere in Chile without going through Santiago. So down and back. We did it, and it took about 30 hours of travel from the time we left one door to the time we did the other. So that was pretty long things, but the Lord helped us make all our connections. There were some challenges we were able to work through. The customs were very interested in Seth's carry-on because he had brought some brown sugar, and which was okay to take, but they were kind of checking it to make sure it was just brown sugar and nothing else. So we passed okay. So what did we do? Let's talk about what we did, what we saw, what we experienced, and what were some of the highlights and what's coming up next. So what we did, the types of things we did, we attended the church services. We had 2 morning services or 2 Sunday services, and then a Wednesday evening service. We visited a couple tourist sites to see what's down there. It's a little bit different. We'll show you a couple of those. And we visited and hosted and did a lot of hosting of people from the church. Just gave them a chance. Mark and Becca are very good at this, to help you get connected with the people, and the people to get connected with you and to ask questions of you in that regard. So that was very interesting. That was fun. We had to adjust to a new daily routine. They do things a little different down there and do it in different ways, so we had to make some adjustments there. And then we enjoyed one another. It was fun. It was fun being with family and with that church that we've prayed for quite a while. So let's talk about not what we did, but what we saw And this is the picture of the church. They have a nice little diagram of everybody that's in the church. It's a little bit out of date, but some of the people there are David and Christy Flink. They were the ones who planted the church. They've now moved 9 hours north, right to the Chile-Peru border in Arica. So they're beginning a Bible study there. I think they had like 8 or 10 the first time. So that's good. And then you know Mark and Becca. They're supporting the Flinks, and now they're the only missionary in there. There's Andreas and his wife Clay, and he is the pastor. He went through their Bible Institute, got training, and came to the church there in Antofagasta as an intern, and continued to preach, and the people called him to be their pastor, so he's the official pastor of the church. And then down below there is Adrian and Angelica, and they are, he's an elder now. He's the first lay elder that's there in the church, and we're thankful for that. And then Marco was recently appointed an elder at the church. So you can see some of the key people that are there that we had a chance to interact with and enjoy their fellowship. And it's fun to actually meet some people that you've been praying for. And so we're thank the Lord for that. So that's the church, the people. They do have a building, and this building kind of looks a bit like a garage. They open that big door that's there and then slide it there, and you go in, and they've got it fixed quite nicely. There's 3 floors to the building, and it's a good provision of the Lord. There's a couple of folks that were there. Edgar was leading singing that morning, and Mark was giving the announcements. And that's kind of what the pulpit looks like. If you look at from the pulpit and look back into the church, you'll see the people that are gathered there. Right now, what they do in the first part of their Sunday service, they just take some prayer requests, and they get together in different groups, and they pray. And so their prayer meeting starts right at the beginning of the Sunday morning service. And then they do a bunch of singing and other things as well. So that was what the church looks like. It was fun to see different interactions. You can see Seth and Elizabeth talking to a couple of the teenagers that were there. You can see Lois talking to one of the ladies, having a good, intense conversation, right? Yeah, that's what she said. And then Seth and Elizabeth had a great time talking with the kids and practicing their Spanish. That first Sunday we were there, both Seth and Elizabeth were invited to a birthday party, not theirs, but for one of the guys in the church. And Seth actually went, and Elizabeth said, "I've had so much Spanish, I just can't take any more." So she did not go, but they both did a good job interacting at the church. Over in the lower corner over here, you can see a view from the top of the church here. So the 3rd floor is actually all open. You don't need any covering because it doesn't rain. So the 3rd floor is open, and you can see this is kind of what you're looking at. To your back, you would see the ocean, and here you look the other way, you'd see the mountains. And they were busy telling about it. So that's the church. That's kind of what we saw as far as the church. What we saw, some of the sites, this is the Portada. This is a very interesting, I'll get my pointer on here so you can see it. It's a very interesting formation. It's just an arch that's right in the middle of the ocean there. So that's one of their famous landmarks. Another one of their famous landmarks is the Palm, and this was just built in the middle of the desert, and it just sticks out there, and you come there and you get your picture taken and say, "What is that?" Well, it's concrete palm in the middle of the desert. The interesting thing about it, though, is all around it, it really is desert. And there's a very nice highway that gets very little traffic. And Lois just thought she'd just take a little rest there in the middle of since there was no traffic. So we had a good time out there. But it looked kind of like you might expect the moon or Mars to look like, just barren desert. We also saw some things downtown Antofagasta. This is their big plaza, and Lois and I were standing there in front of that monument. And then, of course, the kids from Northside had to find a lion that they could hang out with, so they're hanging out with the Northside lion. On this next slide is, now I'm up on the third floor of the Perry's place, the mission house where they're living. And this is what you see when you look down. So you got this little street here. It's got all kinds of traffic going on it, buses everywhere. And this is the train. And this is the train that comes all kind of hours of the day and night, going roaring through. And what's on this one are plates of copper that they've harvested from the mines. And each one of those plates, I'm told, is worth about, and there's a whole stack of them, and each one of these stacks is like $15,000 worth of copper. So that comes roaring through there. That's their life stay pretty much. And you can see the ocean out there and the port where they send that throughout all the world. So that's copper. That's what they can see from their upstairs window. If you look more out their upstairs window, there's this historical mining museum, and we were standing in front of it. Mark and Becca used to live right up here, and then they moved to the mission house, which is not far away, very almost in the same neighborhood in that regard. So that was an interesting place to do. And then this is a very common picture down here. This is the picture of Becca taking pictures. She loves to take pictures, and she takes them everywhere. And if you follow their missionary prayer letters, there's always interesting pictures of stuff and of dogs that are roaming on the street and everything else. But this is from their third floor. That's a beautiful sunset over the ocean, and we enjoyed seeing that from time to time. All right, let's take another peek. What we saw, the people in Antofagasta. And we were very thankful to spend Thanksgiving with them. And this is Pastor Andreas and his family right here. And we are celebrating Thanksgiving. And we had turkey and we had dressing that we brought from the States and everything else. Brought a couple boxes of stovetop and a bunch of other good stuff. We brought our cranberries too. And I told Andreas, I said, this is an American holiday, so you need to speak English. And he could, and he did, and I appreciated that in that regard. So that's where they are. Other people we saw, this is Pastor Andreas and his wife Clay and Lois and I. And then over here is David and Kathy. David is a train engineer, and so he runs one of those trains up and down. And they shared testimony for how their family has just distanced them because of their love for the Lord Jesus Christ. Some of you understand what that's like. And that was very sad, but they had a great desire for the Lord. You can see a couple of contrasts from up here and down here. Sometimes our interaction with folks was very intense, very serious. And here we have a very serious conversation with Manuel and Cote, and they shared their salvation testimonies. Sometimes the interaction is just putting some Lego together, and all three of those boys seemed to enjoy doing that. In this conversation, they only spoke Spanish, and so Mark was there kind of being my little ear and helping me converse with them, and we appreciated that. Manuel, that following Sunday, became a member of the church, and so it was great to talk to him, and he and his daughter, Sophia, both became members. And Sophia is looking to go to Bible school in March, in the beginning of the next semester. So we had a great time just chatting with them. We were served things at their house, and some were interesting. But most of it was good. Other folks we interacted with, this is Juan Diaz. He could speak some English, so we connected reasonably well. He's looking for a job, but he liked to play chess. He said, I need to play chess with you. So, okay, it's been a long time. And so we played, one day we played a couple games. He beat me the first one, and I squeaked out the second one. And then he said, we have to play again. And so he came over one other time, and we played another game. And I lasted long enough that he had to leave. And so if you can see what the board looks like, you can see he would have won if he had just a little more time. But just chatting with folks and interfacing with them and connecting in ways that you can. we formed a good friendship, and we're connected on WhatsApp. Down below here is Edgar and myself. Edgar I met last time I was down there, and when the ladies had one of their meetings over at the church, Edgar took Seth and Mark and I, took us to Starbucks. I could find some hot chocolate I could drink there. I don't drink the coffee, but anyway, we had a good conversation. We talked about marriage roles and responsibilities, about schooling for their daughter. She's just coming into schooling age. Put them in a Christian school. No, you can't put them in a Christian school. So do you homeschool? I'm not sure I can. And so what's doing there? And just overall life priorities. So you can see a picture of kind of us sitting around there, Seth and Edgar and myself having just a great chat. We also connected by playing a game they call paddle. It's kind of like tennis. It's kind of like pickleball. It's got a court and a net. It uses a tennis ball. And the one thing different about it, in the back, all around it, you can see our plexiglass walls, and you can bounce the balls off the walls. So it's like, where was I during geometry class to figure this out? So Seth and Edgar did a fine job, and they won 2 games against Mark and I, the old guys, but we won the 3rd game. So it was just fun, again, connecting with some of these friends down there. What we saw, some of the people, we saw people in Santiago. This is the Castro family. Our flights got changed several times from when we booked them, because we booked them quite early. We ended up with 8 or 9 hours of layover in Santiago in our travels. And as Lois talked to some of her friends, she said, "Oh, we'll pick you up at the airport, we'll come have you over for dinner, and then we'll take you back." And so this is the Castro family. We had a good time with them, and they were so glad to see Lois, and I think they like the rest of us too. And then on the way back, Nicolette, again, a friend of Lois, and Lois is helping her learn English, and she's doing very well. She wanted us to come, by all means come, and so she got a different car so she could transport all of us, everything else, and had us come over, and had this beautiful spread here. It's not all there, but a beautiful meal. And then after we were done, all of a sudden the house started filling up, and filled up with ladies who had known Lois over the years. And wow. We took a quick journey to a church nearby where Lois had served, and got a chance to see that church and everything else with some of the ladies. And we got back to the house, and there were more ladies. And there were about 13 other ladies who came just to see Lois and say, "You really did get married, didn't you?" Yeah, they were all excited for her. And so we had some more to eat, and they all told me how wonderful she was, and I agreed. So we were all happy about that. So there's the whole group that came just to see her, and they got us back to the airport in time. So that was a tremendous blessing for me in particular, and for her as well. What we experienced, I'll go through this kind of quickly, but what we experienced, a growing, loving, enthusiastic church. The people were just excited about living for the Lord. We were glad to be there. It was great to interact with people that you've been praying for and talk to them. "Diego, I've been praying for you." "Oh, really?" "Oh, yeah." We experienced Antofagasta, a city of contrast, some very beautiful places, buildings, downtown area. There's a lot of houses that are all jammed together, concrete, with gates and fences and kind of dirty, yeah, in places. The infrastructure was different. Speed bumps all over the place. Stop, boom, boom, stop, to keep people from going too fast. That was real exciting. The roads were narrow. Everybody just kind of went where they wanted to go. They didn't care too much what anybody else was going. Buses were everywhere. You could see buses, a very common mean of transportation. Infrastructure, differences there, from electrical outlets to how you use the restroom, to the drinking water, open windows. Just leave your windows open. No bugs down there, really. But the houses were very secure. And the cultural differences, a lot of different things. That included some of the greetings. I mean, normally we just kind of shake hands. If, we're COVID, you'll bump fists or anything else. But in Chile, if the ladies come up to you, you got to say, hola, and that's fine for her, but it's a little different for the rest. But we managed to get through it in that regard. Some of the meal times and foods were different. And of course, the language was different. And that was a challenge for everybody on all aspects, just to grow in their ability and the challenge to communicate the gospel in a different language. And then I guess one of the biggest challenges, and it began to dawn on me right away, but the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Pray earnestly to the Lord of the harvest to send forth laborers into his harvest. You see all these people. They've got that nice church, probably about 60, maybe 70 people that were gathered. That's out of 400,000. And it was very obvious when you kind of walk into a brand new situation, but that's what we're dealing with here in the States. And so that was one of my big experiences. Let me finish up. Some of my highlights were seeing Seth interact with others in Spanish. That was really great. And seeing the Lord begin to work in his life, that maybe that'd be something he could do in the future. Working with children, working with Spanish, maybe working in Chile. He really seemed to connect well with that. Interacting with Edgar and sharing some things was a key highlight, and some of the other ones as well. And see even some progress he had made while we were there. And then seeing the Lois's friends and churches in Santiago was just, they all watched our wedding and stuff, but they really came out. They wanted to see her in there, all this hugging. It's cool. So what's coming for the Perrys ahead? Mark and Becca have been asked by the elders, the three, Pastor Andreas and Marco and Adrian. They've been asked just to stay until October 2025. Mark and Becca were wondering, should I go up to Arica and help David? But they, on their own initiative, came to Mark and Becca and said, we'd like you to stay. And then here's some specific areas of ministry that we would like you to take care of while you're still here. And so it was good to see the mature thinking on the part of the elders. And so it looks like Mark and Becca will be there for probably almost another 2 years. So, okay. And they will continue with the faithful discipleship of church members down there and interacting with them, as we had a very brief chance to. They have nobody visiting from out of town, and Mark and Becca told me today that we got somebody coming in every night of the week. So they're busy people and loved as well. So the question was this a visit? Was it a vacation or a mission trip? Perhaps both. But if you're preparing for one, let me give you some thoughts. Pray for a specific ministry, a specific missionary. Pray the Lord would work in your heart and maybe just get to know one missionary quite well. I've got some other parents that are in our congregation. I've visited their children on the field. But pray for a specific one, and then communicate with them and ask them for specific requests. Like, who are some of the people that you should be praying for? Tell me about them. And get to know them even as you pray for them. Get to know the individuals in the church. Develop the relationship with the missionary. And then ask if you can visit. It's been surprising for me over the years how many of missionaries say, oh yeah, I'd be glad to have you come. And ask if you can and see what the Lord will do. And see if that might be an option for you, your family, or others that you can take along with. So we were very thankful for the opportunity we had. It was also very good to be home. We were very tired. And when one seat is not enough, you just have to spread out and cover all that area. But very thankful for what we were able, the Lord allowed us to do. So, Pastor, I can turn it over to you. If people have questions, you can maybe talk to me afterwards.